So I want to introduce, first of all, I'm going to say a little few words about Deborah. I'm sure you all know her. She's very famous. But she's a business leader, an investor, a TV personality, and a writer. So Deborah first appeared on Dragon's Den on Series 3, and she has been heavily focused not just investing in multiple different businesses, but really focused on environmental and ethical industries at the same time. So I'm sure you've got loads of questions. And being a cybersecurity conference, I'm going to have to ask some cyber questions as well. But please do give a big round of applause to Deborah Meaden. Welcome, Deborah.
I like that. I like that.
You're going to go round the houses a little bit.
Round there.
So do take a seat. So, Deborah, welcome.
Hi.
I know everybody probably knows you from Dragon's Den. We met previously in Manchester, and I have to say you have an absolutely fascinating background in terms of where you've come from and how did you even come on Dragon's Den in the first place. So for our audience today, it would just be nice. Who is Deborah? Where did you come from?
Well, I was born in... How long have you got? Because I've got quite a few years to go through. So I'll run through very quickly. I always knew I wanted to have my own business, probably for independence. I wanted to be able to make my own mistakes, make my own successes, and build my own life. So whilst having your own business doesn't guarantee that, because at times it's definitely running you, you're not running it. It was something I always wanted to do. First business at the age of 18, 19. Managed to convince 4 Italian businesses that I could bring their products into the UK. Don't know why, don't know how, but they were convinced. And that was my first business failure. That cost me £3,000, which at the time felt a fortune. I didn't have £3,000, but I learned a huge amount. And I will skip through my career. The reason I'm holding a microphone is I was at one point a bingo caller. So I've done very many different jobs, but I guess the one that really made me understand that I had wealth, because I think a lot of us in business just keep working and don't really take stock. You don't think about how much am I making. Well, I didn't think about that. It was just I wanted to do a really good job. But when I sold West Star Holidays, a partial exit for 33 million, and then I did a second exit when we sold it for 80 million pounds. And then suddenly I felt like, oh my goodness, what shall I do now? And for 2 weeks, I thought I was going to retire. And after I'd rearranged the furniture 97 times and been bothering my husband, he finally said, Deborah, can you please find something to do? Because this is driving me bananas. So, and coincidentally, I got a call from Dragon's Den. And Dragon's Den asked whether or not I'd be interested on being on this relatively new only had 2 seasons TV series, Dragon's Den, and I said no thank you very much. I built a very nice life. I'm very nervous about being out in the media spotlight, and I really don't need the media making their own mind up on who I am, what I do, and what I care about. But there was a brilliant woman at the BBC who didn't give up, and I think she sensed that I would love Dragon's Den, and she just kept trying to find the button, and eventually she said, oh, come on, you like challenges, you've never done this before, come in and, we'll have a screen test with Duncan and a chap called Richard Farley, who joined at the same time as me. And once I'd had that screen test, I literally went from going, I'm not interested. I don't want to do this, to if they don't give me this job, I'm going to be absolutely gutted. So that's how I ended up being on Dragon's Den.
Amazing. And we're going to get to questions in good time. So you must have seen some companies or people coming through of all shapes and sizes. I'm going to ask you in a little bit about some of those with regards to the weird and the wonderful. As I say, we're at a cybersecurity conference. So we've been talking all day about cyber and the threats.
They're a scary lot. They're all technically brilliant. And you're going to ask me stuff about cyber?
I'm going to start with an easy question with regards to, I know you talked a lot about boards and companies and what they're investing in. Do you think companies as a whole are investing enough in cyber security?
Well, as a whole is really quite difficult, because the span of answers on that is, I've seen companies who really take it seriously, often in the financial sector, people who have a very short line between, the data that they're collecting, the information that they're holding, and keeping that secure. A very short line between what they do and understanding the reason why that obviously has to be taken care of. But then you get into businesses that sort of offer, they kind of forget they forget about that, because they're offering products or services, and they don't necessarily draw a direct line between that and the fact that that data is gold, and any projects they're on, you want to be able to protect those, you want to be able to make sure that you protect your brand, and those are the ones that I think probably struggle a little bit more. Do they spend enough money? Some organizations, yes, and some organizations, literally, I feel like they're doing it kicking and screaming. Just literally, oh, do we have to now? Oh, have we really got to update? So I think it's a bit of a span of an answer.
Yeah, and I think one of the challenges that we were talking about as well is the fact that it's not getting any easier, it's actually getting worse in terms of educating people and bringing people up to speed. What's your experience of how people kind of think about it? So do you think they don't think about it at all?
Well,
they get it?
So I think that organizations that have the tech department over here, who give the impression that that's taking care of everything, are at the single biggest risk. Because actually, you're strong, your biggest risk is your weakest point, and your weakest point are people who really don't know or don't care. So they don't know why, so they don't understand the implications. You're giving them a set of instructions. You're not allowed to do this, you can't do that, you mustn't do that. You issue a set of instructions, you don't explain the implications if we don't all work within our guidelines, and you don't tell me why it matters to me. So I feel like there's somebody over there that's looking after all that, and I'm not going to bother, and I see that an awful lot in organizations. And the most successful ones are the ones who manage to get everybody in that organization caring. Because if you don't care, you don't really do it properly.
And I guess you have a lot of people, as you said, companies pitching to you. So if you were going to give a recommendation, so you've got 5 minutes to pitch to the board and tell them, why should I care about cybersecurity? What would your kind of top tips be for sort of pitching to the board for some people here?
So when you're pitching to the board, you need to speak to that in the language that the board cares about. So you need to understand what your board cares about. It isn't always the same, but it usually is financially. That's what they're bothered about, the profits at the end of the day. So we need to speak in terms that talks about the impact of not taking care of their systems, their processes, their tech, their data, not taking care of that. And then on the flip side, not just talk about the negative because it's very, very easy to slip into just talking about the negative impacts of not doing it, but actually talking about the positive impacts. Because if we get this right, and we are seen as a really good brand to work with or a really good service to work with, it's not just going to stop you losing money, it's going to help you earn money. And so I think whenever this is true when you're pitching it to anybody about anything. What are their buttons? What do they care about? What terms do they need to be spoken to in?
And what is the kind of key things that tends to turn you on or off when people are talking to you? Is it when they're using we talked a lot about jargon today and acronyms and long words and confusing people. So what is there something you would sort of say that something makes you sit forward and take notice, or you just get, I'm just done with this?
No, well, the trouble is you can't be just done with it because it's happening. I mean, there are a lot of security threats out there. So saying I'm done, you cannot opt out of it. But I get interested when we talk about the reality of or the effect. So we talk about if this happens, that happens, that can be good and bad. If we do this, life will get better. If we do this, life will get worse. Because once we can start imagining things, we see things, we're much better. We're not that great at reading off bits of paper and retaining it. We're much better at feeling it. And once we feel it, then we do it. So that's what gets my interest when it is demonstrated. Why are we even, why are we talking about this? Why does it even matter? And I want to hear that in personal terms. I don't want to hear that in this jargon I really don't understand. I mean, I'm not the person who switches off. I'm actually even more annoying. I'm the person who says, I don't understand. I don't understand. I don't know what that means. You know, I don't know whether that's more annoying than less. But I don't switch off. But you know, it's much better if people engage why we're even talking about this.
I think we had a really good keynote this morning that actually addressed that very point. You're trying to make it really simple for people to understand. So hence why we have all these acronyms, and you just assume people know what you're talking about. But actually, they don't know what you're talking about. They don't understand. So actually, you end up taking twice as long rather than having just explained all the things right up front, rather than just assuming people all know what you're talking about. Get to the end, goes, right, we're all on the same page now. We're like, oh, no.
No, and also sometimes it's worse than that because, and I talk a lot about creating safe places for people to be able to say, I don't understand. You know, it takes a lot of confidence to sit in a room and say, and I am very confident, by the way, but it takes a lot of confidence to sit in a room and say, I'm sorry, I don't get it. I don't understand. Can you repeat that again? I don't even know what that word means. You know, so that takes a lot of confidence. So it's not just, you have to create spaces where people can feel like, okay, I'm learning here. So I'm going to need to, you know, you're going to need to explain to me. I'm not an idiot. I'm not stupid, but I don't necessarily speak your language. So I need to be in a safe space where I can just ask and ask and ask until I walk away feeling, right, got it.
I want to get to people's questions, but I did say I wanted to ask you some of the weird and wonderful things that you've seen that come across Dragon's Den in your years. Is there anything that kind of stands out that you're just like, either this is the most wonderful idea that I've ever seen or the most stupid idea?
I've seen loads of absolutely brilliant ideas come into Dragon's Den that literally make me think, why didn't I think of that? And why hasn't that existed before? So there are some fantastic ones. And all you need to do is go onto my website and look at my list of investments, because they're all the ones I thought were a brilliant idea. And to be fair, most of them, not all of them, not everything succeeds, but most of them have turned out really, really well. I do remember my very, very first series. In fact, I think it might be my first or even my second day on Dragon's Den, and somebody came in with false fingernails for cats.
Cats?
And I remember thinking, oh my lordy, if this is what I'm going to have to sit and listen to for the next 20 days, I'm in a lot of trouble. So yeah, false fingernails for cats.
And they done their market research that people were wanting fingernails for cats?
I don't care whether people want them. My cats are not having fingernails on them. I mean, my cats, I've got two cats called Blade and Storm. They named themselves. Can you imagine me trying to put fingernails on them? No, that wasn't happening. I mean, it was yeah, crazy.
Well, let's get some questions going. So I'm sure we've got a few. We've got microphones coming round. I can see someone's really eager here. We're going to go kind of across the room, but there's one just here. Then we'll come to the person in the middle.
No, we can't. Well, I can.
Hello?
There you go.
Sorry, guys, seem to have hogged the mic. You've been on Dragon's Den for many, many series. What keeps you wanting to go back for more? Because energy-wise and everything else, and I'm sure pitch comes along, you think, I've kind of seen this in a different disguise. So what keeps you going back and back and back?
So I love business. I mean, when I talked about, I was half joking when I said I retired for 2 weeks, because I realised very, very quickly that I'd been doing the thing in my life that I absolutely love, and I feel very lucky to have been doing that. So Dragon's Den gives me the opportunity, you know, 25 researchers going out there finding a wild array of businesses, and I get to sit and see inside of those businesses. We're talking thousands on my time on Dragon's Den. I like people. I like creativity, ingenuity. I don't care if they're crazy ideas. You know, it's at least they're thinking, and they've got themselves into the den. So I find it really, really energizing. I cannot imagine why I would stop.
And a question in this middle.
Hello.
Hi. Yeah, would you say that AI is going to cost businesses more in the long run or save them money? Because there's the associated costs of running these very power-hungry things.
So I genuinely can't answer a lot of questions on AI, and I think anybody who is definitive about anything on AI is just not telling you the truth, because it's evolving. We don't know. I am both very, very excited by and terrified of AI. So, and that's my range, because I think used correctly, it's going to be an incredibly powerful tool that is going to help us live our lives better. That is fantastic. Used incorrectly, I think it can be very, very scary. If we get it right, then it should be supporting businesses to be better at what they do. And that should also mean that if you're efficient and you're effective, then it shouldn't cost you more money. But I suspect there'll be a lot of money wasted trying to find the right level and how it should be used. I think there'll be a lot of missteps along the way. I'd like to think that as human beings, we will work that out, and we will, on the whole, make it work for us better. That's my hope.
I made a question from, we've got a few questions. Let's go long. Oh.
And the gentleman back there who had his hand up right early at the beginning,
We'll
yes.
go to you next.
Hi, Deborah.
Hi.
So when you stepped away, we didn't step away, when you moved from professional recognition, and you were comfortable with that presumably, and into a world of public recognition, was that a really difficult transition for you, where you had to get comfortable with people being really that interested?
Oddly, no. So when I had the holiday parks, I spent a lot of time at the holiday parks, and it's a very people-oriented business. We had 150,000 people who came on holiday with us a year, and you would be amazed how many people I recognised and how many people I would remember. Oh, didn't your daughter have a baby? You know, because that matters to people, and that was kind of a tool of my trade. You know, it was my job to remember. We had some people who would return. I mean, it had been literally Jessie J. She was at one of my holiday parks. Her family came for about 15 years, and they used to enter the talent competition, and everybody used to groan because obviously she was going to win. You know, but I would recognize people. So actually, funnily enough, it made my husband jump much, much more, because I'm very comfortable talking to people. You know, if you saw me walk in, I'm straight away, oh, hi. You know, I'm very comfortable with it. He is much more, do you know them? And can I just tell you a quick, very funny story? Sit down and have a cup of coffee in Costa Coffee in Taunton with my husband, and a couple come up and sit down with us. So I wait for Paul to introduce us, and he doesn't. We just carry on chatting, and as they get up and leave, I said to Paul, who are they? He said, well, I don't know. I thought you did. But I like people, you know. So no, it wasn't difficult for me at all. I can imagine if you were in a professional business where you didn't have a lot of interface, then it could be a little bit alarming to start off with. But I love it.
And we're going to go over here.
This is an emotional question, this one. How do you sell your business? We're always being asked to say, you know, they say, oh, we'll value your business, you know, would you like to sell it? How do you emotionally distance yourself with a business that you've built up over a couple of decades?
Well, you've earned the right to decide whether you want to sell your business or not. As it happened, I was approached to sell my business, and I wasn't emotionally ready. However, my head got hold of the situation and said, do you know, when I am emotionally ready, the market might be wrong. So the decisions you have to make is, do I still love this business enough? And I really don't care whether it's the right time or not. I'm not done. I want to stay in the business. Or do you think to yourself, actually, I can control my business. What I can't do is control the market. And as it happens, I ended up selling pretty much. It was just before the financial crisis. If I hadn't sold then, I would have been forced to stay in my business, you know, probably beyond the time that I wanted to. So there is no absolute answer. You have got the right. When you own a business, when you've built a business, you've got the right to decide the things you just need to take into account. How do I feel about it? But actually, now let's step away from the feeling, and technically, is this the right time to sell? And then you can still decide. You might still decide, I don't care, I'm going to stay in the business.
So we'll stay on this side, and then we're going to work away, and then we'll go around the back end. So anyone this side? Yep.
Hi.
Hi.
Sarah has done an amazing job today hosting this conference. How would...
Yes, I agree. I haven't been here. I've been...
How would you feel if instead of Sarah, you had an AI-powered robot?
Well, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have accepted the gig. I've already told you I like people. And they couldn't emulate Sarah anyway. Now, that's what I should have said in the first place, shouldn't I?
Right answer, Deborah. Thank you. So we're going to go around this area. Anyone? I will come back, don't worry.
Hi, Deborah.
Hi.
As an investor, what matters more, the idea or the person?
Person. Absolutely without a doubt. If you've got a really, really good person with an okay idea, they're going to find a way to make it work. And actually, fundamentally, as an investor, and I might be a bit different to other investors, but I don't have to invest. I don't have to. It's not a job. But I will only invest in people, and I only invest in people I trust and I believe. I have a row of switches when I'm making investments. Question, all the technical stuff. And the last switch is, how do I feel about this? And that feel usually is about the people. And once that switch goes down, then we're off. But if that switch doesn't go down, I don't care how good the proposition might look, I'm not going to do it. Life is too short.
Right, we will come back, don't worry. So let's go round. Any questions let's go down and round.
Hi, Deborah.
Hello.
I wanted to pitch to you something. No, I'm
Oh,
joking.
you're not
joking.
allowed to.
Sarah did a really,
Did she
really,
tell
really
you
good
last
job
time
of saying not to do that.
Yeah, because I did get
Given
quite a
this
few
is
pitches.
a cybersecurity conference, I wanted to ask you, have you ever encountered, or one of your businesses, a serious incident? How did you recover from it, and how did you build trust afterward with your customers?
Well, we've actually, so no in terms of customer data. Yes, in terms of financial loss. So I've had a couple actually in the last 12 months. One was an email, very, very slack of us, but email interception, and an invoice, the details on an invoice change and the cash, £40,000 going to somebody else's bank account. So that's quite a common one. In fact, that's happened within two of my businesses, different amounts of money. But I have never had in my organisation either that or they haven't told me about it. But I have never had a big data breach as far as the customers are concerned. But we have had financial breaches.
And we're going to come back round. We'll get to the next person. But Deborah, I have seen you impersonated quite a lot. People trying to use you and your name and your brand to then flog their products online. So what do you do about that? Have you got someone who's kind of looking out for you? And
well, it's hard. It's difficult, as we all know, because you shut one down. It's like whack-a-mole. You shut one down and it just pops up somewhere else. So I've got a member of my team who does nothing but contact whoever it is whose site it is on. Dragon's Den has Sony, who own the format for Dragon's Den. They do exactly the same thing. I've done some work with Action Fraud to raise people's make sure that people think twice. I think what really worries me. Mainly, I get people emailing me saying, look, I'm sure it's not you. And I like that because they get that I wouldn't be promoting those types of products. But every now and then I will get an email from somebody who's lost a lot of money, and it's absolutely heartbreaking. So all I can do is raise profile as much as you possibly can because it is like whack-a-mole. It's impossible to keep on top of. And they're getting better. Some of them I look at and think, did I do that?
Well,
it's hard.
They're not just going to impersonate your image, they're going to use your voice and it's going to get more
AI is going to make
real,
it, yeah,
as
absolutely.
well. So
yeah.
let's go around this side for any questions. Let's go to this person and then we'll come back to you.
Good afternoon, Deborah.
Hello.
As one of the seemingly younger people here, no offence to anyone.
I think you've offended about half of the room, to be fair. Me included. Now, what's your question?
If you could have a 5-minute conversation with yourself at the start of your career, what advice would you give yourself, which I think is applicable to everyone here?
Do you know what? I wouldn't give myself any advice. I would make exactly the same mistakes, and I would learn the same things that I learnt from those mistakes, and I would pretty much follow the same path. We cannot stop ourselves from making mistakes. Mistakes can be an incredibly powerful tool. And people who think they don't make mistakes, don't never ever trust them or believe them. And if I told you I was never going to make a mistake tomorrow and the day after, don't trust me and don't believe me. So I think we have to find our own way in life, and I think getting things wrong is as important as getting things right. In fact, I was thinking about it today. I learn more from getting things wrong, because when I get something wrong, I think about it, I run it in my head, and I think, what would I have done differently? And in that running it in my head, I then put that information into my toolbox, and I think, I'm not going to do that again. When you get things right, you don't tend to analyse in the same way. You don't think, what got that right? I'm not saying it's right, because actually we should analyse in the same way. But you don't tend to think, what is it that I did that made that work? Because you've made a bunch of decisions, you do it, and it works. You know, but actually in there's still a lot of information that's saying why it worked. We don't analyse that in the same way. But I think that's one of the reasons I actually think the mistakes that I made absolutely have brought me to where I am.
So this lady here.
Hello, Deborah. If you don't mind sharing, what inequalities have you faced in your career purely because you're a woman? And what inequalities do you think you're still lingering around in the industry now?
So being in business and having my own business is actually a very good place for equality, because actually your customer doesn't care what gender you are, what you look like, who you are. They just care, is it a good service, and is it, you know, or is it a good product? So I think in terms of building a business, that never came in my way. What has come in my way is trying to finance some of the building the businesses, because there is definitely, I'm sorry, but it's true, there is a bias against female founders. So, well, I know it's true because it's fact, you know, there are stats that back it up. So, and if ever I have had an issue, it has generally been with funding. Now, because I'm an entrepreneur, because I don't stop when somebody says no, and I never see it as my issue. I see it as, well, you're more fool you, because this is going to be a really successful business, and I'm going to take it on. I've always found a way round. So I've always found, you know, I remember when I was trying to do the management buyout, our existing bank wouldn't back me. So I thought, I could have stopped and thought, oh, now I'm in trouble. I didn't. I kept going until I found a bank that actually, you know, just saw me for what I was, which was very good at what I did, you know, and I found the funding. So you know, that I'm not saying it hasn't existed, but it has never stopped me. And I think it's a very powerful thing to deflect, you know, to if somebody tries to convince you that you're not right, and this isn't just gender. If somebody tries to, because it happens to a lot of people, if somebody tries to make you feel like you're the problem, I never take that on board. I know I'm not stupid. You know, I know I have lots of options. And I simply know that I just, okay, if it's not you, I'll just go and find a different way of doing it. And I think that's a very, very powerful thing to do. And unfortunately, too many people don't do that. They think it's them. What have I done wrong? What is it that I, you know, and even if I have made a mistake and I've got something wrong, I don't live with that and think, oh, I give up. I think, okay, I'll just do that slightly differently next time, you know, and that's a very powerful thing to do.
So an extension of that question might be slightly controversial. Donald Trump as president. What's your view on our trade?
We were having such a lovely time, weren't we? Weren't we having a lovely chat? Weren't we? Go on, mention Brexit now. Go, just complete the set. Well, I think what we have to do, actually, I generally say that, I say this about the budget as well, because you can imagine I got asked all the time to comment on the budget. I think we have to let things settle. Now, obviously, or not obviously, I didn't want Trump to win. I don't think he was the best option for the world for many, many different reasons. But he's full of bluster, and what we don't know is what he's actually going to do and what he actually can do. You know, and I prefer to wait and find out what I need to be pleased with, because he will do some stuff that I like, and find out the things that I really need to, you know, worry about, you know, and we honestly don't know what that is. That they've been in campaign mode, you know. He said anything to win. He just, you know, who knows what Trump's going to do. What I'm really interested in watching is who he gets around him. You know, who he gets around him, that's going to tell us an awful lot about, you know, what his approach is going to be. But, you know, I'm sure I like a lot of people are like, oh, no, you know, we're all a little bit worried about it. But I think we just...
in our chairs.
Yeah, well, there is that, yeah. Yeah.
All right, we've got loads of questions. Let's go back round this, along this way. Yeah, go on.
Thank you. Okay, so first of all, what you said earlier about people judging you and criticising, I've always believed that people judge people by their own standards. So if ever my husband said to me, are you having an affair? I'd be thinking, right, what are you up to? The question that I have is, if you haven't already written a book about your life to help motivate other people to succeed, is that something that's going to be on the agenda, do you think, moving forwards?
So I've written 3 books.
You have?
I have. The first one was called Common Sense Rules, and it's a book that I wrote that I actually thought, I hope everybody gets to the end of this book and said, I knew that. Because common sense isn't, you've heard it so many times, it's not that common. And all I was trying to say is business is not that complicated. It's not easy. You've got to work hard. There's things you've got to do, but it's not that complicated. So I wrote Common Sense Rules, has a few of my life stories in it, but really focused on the businesses. My other 2 books, the first one was for 6 to 11-year-olds, and the other one was 11 to 16-year-olds, and it's all about money because we don't teach it in school, which is absolutely ridiculous. You cannot do anything in life without it touching money. So how we don't have that on our life skills in schools, I don't know. I haven't even got children. Don't ask me why I ended up writing the book. But yeah, and I'm not sure about my life story. Do you know, I get asked a lot, who's my inspiration? And the thing I say is I get inspired by people all day, every day. I meet brilliant people. I meet people who are just getting on and doing their job, and they do something absolutely fantastic. And I think, wow, that's going in my toolbox. That was brilliant. But nobody has it all. Nobody has up on that pedestal. Nobody is brilliant at everything. Believe it or not, however many times Evans tells you I'm the expert in absolutely everything, I am not. In fact, I never am. Usually somebody in the room knows more than me. So.
Just curious as to where your confidence comes from, really, and where it all built from.
Don't know.
No.
I don't know. No, so I had, my mother was a single parent, divorced when I was about 18 months old. And I think she was relentless. She just picked herself up, got out there, did whatever it took to build a life. So I think having seen that side, I always think how listen, let's not focus on the stuff that doesn't matter. Let's just get on and do it, and if you just keep going and just get on and do it, how hard can it be? When I had a franchise, I had the first Stefano franchise in the UK. And I walked, and I got it because I walked past their shop in Knightsbridge, and I thought, oh, Stefano, they're good. I wonder if they're doing franchises. And I popped in and I said, where's head office? And they said, oh, down here. And I went, oh, brilliant. I'd like to find out if they do franchises. And they went, oh, well, actually, the managing director's in now. So when I went to see him, and I remember the slightly startled look on his face. It's just like, but you're 19 years old. What are you doing? And it's because I didn't filter myself out. I didn't think, oh, you don't do that. I just did it. I don't know what you should. Too many of us filter out and think, oh no, that's not right. Don't do that. That's not right. And I don't.
It's a very British thing, isn't it? Thinking we shouldn't do stuff or push ourselves forward. So that's great advice. We're going to go up this corridor.
This lady here, because she had her hand up before and then she lost her nerve. I saw you.
Absolutely right.
I saw you.
First of all, not a question, just a thank you. I'm going to buy the 2 books for my girls because I've never been taught the language of money, and now at this age, 42, I'm learning it, and I think it's important for kids to learn. And thank you for that first point about when you negotiate or pitch anything, you need to focus on the positive and what's in it for the person who's listening, because I've learned that again the hard way. So thank you so much. That's it.
Oh, no, thanks. That's lovely.
So let's carry on up this way, and then we'll come back round.
Deborah, when you co-invest with other dragons, does that breadth of experience really help, or are there tensions or problems caused by it? Is it an easy process?
So it's an easy process. What tends to happen is one of the dragons takes the lead, because actually for the entrepreneur, can you imagine if you've got, sometimes it's 5 dragons on board. Can you imagine trying to manage 5 dragons? You will have heard me say sometimes, I don't want to invest with more dragons. And that's because it can add complications. It can be much easier. You have to manage investors. So if you take on 5 dragons, it's fine when we're all agree, but if 5 of us disagree, what do you do? So I have actually said I'm not interested in investing with anybody else. I only co-invest with other dragons when I think they've got something I can't offer. So they're filling in the gaps. Or I think I don't offer the full package, so I think, well, actually, they won't pick me because I haven't got enough strength in that area. And then I will co-invest. So there's always a reason for me to co-invest. But it does, the honest truth is that you do tend to find that even if you had 5 dragons, you get 1 or 2 who really engage with that business. Who really give it their time. Because actually, if there's 5 of you, it's quite easy to pull out of the scenario. So I, and it's why I'm a little bit nervy around co-investing with other dragons. I've got to think why. Why. And if you've got a why, then there's a clear division of duties. And then, it's very clear. You pick that up, I'll pick that up, and then it works really well.
Let me go up this side.
Yeah, as one of the Americans in the room, just thank you for your comments on Donald Trump.
Oh, sorry. Oops.
But kind of around the business of cybersecurity, for those of us that work in that business, it's not often a money maker for businesses. So for those of us that have decisions and make recommendations for different security controls or business cases, to kind of executive levels, what are some recommendations you can give for business cases or pitches that is only cost producing or safety measures for organizations?
Well, I would say I'll bet you are a money maker. Somewhere in your organization, having a good and trusted brand is going to make you more money. Good and trusted brands come from knowing that if I give you my data, you are going to protect it and you're going to take care of it. So I bet you that if you took your services away, businesses would know it. So I think that's the terms that you've got to talk about, that you've got to try and find a value around what you're bringing, but also, if you weren't there, what it would be costing. And there are 2 sides to that particular coin. And in terms of marketing, data protection is incredibly important. You get a breach of data, you lose the trust of your customers. Oh my goodness. It could be the end, or it certainly could mean a very long time before you recover from it. So I think those are the tools and the language that people need to make that connection with. Because you're right, too often it's seen as a cost that is probably can be pushed a little bit. I know we've got to update. I know we've got to do that, but it's a bit. We've got other stuff that we've got to do first. And that's dangerous. So I think there's almost a responsibility to find the language that will be picked up in a boardroom.
So I'm going to go back around that edge.
Hiya. Do you have a view on crypto, and could you ever envisage accepting payment in Bitcoin, for example?
Have you seen the value of Bitcoin at the moment? Oh my goodness. I wish I had. Actually, funnily enough, sorry, just to go back to my book, it isn't just 11 to 16-year-olds who've been buying it. I keep getting emails from grandparents saying, I bought it and I now understand Bitcoin. So I'm now going to give it to my thing. So Bitcoin for me, I'm not a gambler. I take risks. I don't gamble. And Bitcoin has been, for me, too much of I don't understand why. Until I understand the mechanisms that affect Bitcoin, I'm not going to be investing in them. That's just me personally, because obviously there's a lot of people made a lot of money out of it. But it is maturing. So the whole market is beginning to mature. The Bank of England are obviously talking about their own cryptocurrencies. So I think it's just that for me it's a little bit too early. It's a little bit too much on the gamble side as opposed to the risk side, honestly. But you might all know way more than I do about it and tell me I'm wrong. Who's going to be brave enough to sit in here and say I'm wrong?
We'll come back down this side. Any questions? Yeah, this person here.
Hi, Deborah. Thank you for being here. Can I ask, let's say, for example, if I give you a scenario that you had an offer or a investor or even, for example, a possible potential partner wanted to join you in your businesses and that sort of thing. then in that case, what sort of metrics would you run in your head basically to say whether you would partner with them? Obviously, the main ones would be there, but otherwise, besides that, I mean.
It's a really good question because it's actually a question that I think plays on a lot of people's minds. It's very easy when you need cash just to think you go out and I'm just going to get cash. I'm going to raise money. But you've got to choose your partners really, really well. Because if you don't have a common goal, people, when they're trying to invest in your business, they say anything. You are the best thing since sliced bread. Whatever you want will be. We won't interfere. You know, you're brilliant. Yeah, absolutely. So it's your job to find the right partner. What do they add? You know, look into their history. What type of businesses are they? I would always speak to somebody that has co-invested with them. You know, so what is that experience like? And I would make sure that I understood what other value they were adding, not just cash. Unless I just needed cash. If I just need cash, then just put the money in. But generally, I think, you know, most investors can add something, even if it's just in a set of connections. So just work that out on top of how much cash do we physically need. Because if it is just cash, and this is a word of warning, if an investor is just putting their cash in, then all they're interested in is how they get a return on that investment, which is fine because that's what investors do. But what they won't do is they won't cut you any slack when the chips are down and when it's having a tough time. And every business goes through up and downs. And you didn't need an investor that is going to help you through that, not just cut and run as soon as the going gets tough.
Do you have some more questions from over here?
Hi, Deborah.
Hi.
To try and get this across, I love what you're saying about economic literacy in this book, and I consume a lot of that over the last 5 years through YouTube and things, and it's been brilliant for me. But I always find that I would have no idea how to go and get investment for a business idea. I kind of look at my own bank balance and be like, I don't have a lot of assets. I've been sort of working since 2008, and I've only known kind of the sort of low growth economy, if that makes sense. So what would someone like me who's got no idea about that, what would I do?
Well, ask yourself first, are you interested? Because of course you can do it, you're smart. You know, a lot of people do get number blindness because they have been told a lot that they're not very good with numbers. My husband, he's actually really, really, really smart on business. And he looks at a spreadsheet and he says to me, there's something wrong there, but he has got, what's it when you've got number blind, dyscalculia, is that right? Is that right? Yeah, so he can't see numbers. He's been convinced his entire life now that he's actually not very good at numbers, and he is. There's too much of that going on. I have no idea if that relates to you. But if you're smart, of course you can understand. You only really need to know 3 numbers in business. I need to know my turnover, I need to know my gross margin, I need to know whether or not I'm making a profit. Those are the 3 major numbers. But if it really, really, really isn't your thing, and you're really not that interested in making it your thing, get yourself a partner on board who is good at that, you know, and whether that is a mentor who can coach you through that, or you actually get yourself a business partner and say, you know what, I'm really good at this bit. Now I need somebody else who's really, really good at that bit, because you don't have to have all the things you're talking about in terms of assets. I mean, you know, assets help, but if you've got a good plan, and certainly I borrowed when I bought Westar Holidays, trust me, my assets were that much of my borrowing. I mean, I borrowed a lot of millions of pounds, and I borrowed that on the back of a plan, and I'm good at what I do. This is the plan I'm going to deliver, and I got backed for that. So don't just think in terms of assets. Think, or actually, I'll say this differently. Don't think in terms of physical assets. You're an asset. What you do, your skills, your history, all of the things you've done in the past, you're an asset. That has value.
Questions? Anyone from around here? All right, we'll come back round the front. Okay, she wants to...
Now that's cheeky. That's the second question. There's a gentleman at the back who's only on his first question over there.
You can have 2.
I had 2 questions.
You got 1. He's got 2.
I know. What do you think you would be doing now if you hadn't had the career you'd had? So if you didn't do what you're doing now, what would you be doing?
I can't imagine.
can't imagine.
I can't imagine. I don't, because I've never had to think about that. So I'll tell you what I dreamed of doing, but I know the difference between a dream and reality is when I was from the age of nothing, I wanted to have my own business. And I even then knew that it was a dream, but I wanted to be a show jumper. I loved horses, and I just wanted to be a show jumper, and I was absolutely rubbish. So there was no way I was ever going to do that. But I also really understood the difference between what I actually would do and what I dreamt of doing, you know. And as it turns out, you know what, I get to my age in life and think, but this is what I wanted to do. You know, it wasn't what I dreamt of doing, but actually I feel very lucky that I've spent a life doing what I love. How lucky am I?
Very true. If you have to, you can have to, but I won't force you to make another one up.
Thank you very much. Good evening,
Hi.
Deborah. Really great questions, and great answers so far. It's a highlight.
So far, is it going to throw? It's going
Yeah.
to throw me a very. I'm feeling slightly nervous now.
No. I apologize. And as a father of 3 girls, it's I role model. I've got them to watch yourself and some of the ladies on Dragon's Den because it's about teaching them and paying forward. For me, the question I wanted to ask, I know I've seen you walk away from key investments because they do not speak to your value in terms of sustainability or certain things, and that speaks about who you are. So in terms of business, at your core, does your value and what you believe in and what that business stands for come first before whatever return on investment you will make on that business?
Absolutely. I have to live with myself. I have to sleep at night. And there are some businesses I don't care. In fact, I can see it. They come into the den and I think, you know what, you're going to make a fortune. Yeah, that is a really great business. I don't like it. I don't like the way you're doing business. I don't like the language that you're using, and I don't actually like what the business is doing. So there is absolutely no way I'm going to do that. So it's completely at the forefront. I have to say, over time, I'm in a fortunate position that I can do that. You know, I can be quite absolute about the things that I care about. But it is true when you go through life, sometimes you have to compromise a little bit. I don't think I've ever made a big one, because if it really got in there, if it really bothered me, you know, if it was about, if it hurt the environment, if it hurt animals, if it hurt, you know, the things that I really cared about, no way is it going to get it past my gatekeeper. But nothing is as black and white as that, you know, and sometimes I find myself straying into things and me thinking later, not sure how I feel about that. You know, doing my best to adjust it, because you can make adjustments from within an organisation. And if I couldn't adjust it, then I have to get out.
Thank you. And thanks for the opportunity to ask the second question. The second question I would want to ask is still about, you know, girls, next generation growing up. Do you think as a society we're doing, you know, a lot to encourage girls into, you know, investments, into doing things the way, you know, men are pushed? Because for most traditional homes, they think, oh, the man, you know, should be the head of the home, so they push more towards the men, because I don't think so, you know, and so for me, that's always a concern. So
I'm one of 4 girls, single parent family, so I just had my mother around, and I think that was a great example to me. I didn't even know there was any gender issue at all, you know, until I came across it when I was much, much older. And I think the biggest gift that my parents ever gave to me was expectation. So we need to expect of people. It doesn't matter about their gender. We need to expect that they're going to fulfill their full potential. And I'm afraid, I think, particularly in our education system, I don't believe that that is happening enough, and it needs to happen very, very early on. Otherwise, we are absolutely defining people's life paths. So no, I think our education system has an awful lot to do. I think we need to expect of everybody. And I don't mean expect in a, you know, in a harmful way. I just mean expect them to be able to be their best, you know, and not filter them out.
The question, yeah.
Hello, Deborah.
Hi.
I realise line of sight here.
I got you.
You probably think I got hair, which is a fantastic thing for me.
I think you've got red hair. Is it the gentleman in front of you?
I'll definitely live with that. So the little I know about you that you've allowed us to see shows you very strongly supportive of environment and all things eco, and that really touches strikes a chord with me. Those were the words. What would you consider to be the most hopeful technology that balances our increasing need in cyber and IT for power, that's going to give us what we actually need for the world at large?
Oh gosh, I don't. Do you know, that's a question I would love to ask the audience, because I haven't really seen any particularly emerging technology. So you talk about generally technology. You talk about EV vehicles and things like that, or are you talking in your sphere?
Yes, I guess what I'm looking at primarily here is we're power hungry. We need power. So would it be solar? Would it be potentially? That's probably an easier thing to look at and answer.
Yeah, so I think the answer to that is always balance, because solar doesn't do it. Wind doesn't do it. And actually, the UK has enough power, but it's got it in the wrong places. And I've got a very dear friend of mine who is trying to, build a load of these massive, great big data centers, and the biggest problem they've got is its power's over there. Now, how do I get it over here? So it's not just about power generation. And actually, as a country, we're doing pretty well on sustainable power. We are world leading. That is an area that we are world leading at the moment in. So that's pretty good. That isn't the problem. It is the grid. It's the system that is the problem. So we've got to find a way of getting the power to the right places. Funnily enough, name drop now, but funny enough, I was talking to the government about exactly that thing, saying that you're going to stop development because we don't have the power in the right places.
I'm going to go around that back end. Okay, you can have one. And then we'll go back round.
I'm so glad that not only Richard Parler earlier today mentioned sustainability, but it's actually been brought up again, because I work for ABB, and if you're going to build security from the bottom up, then it needs to start from the bottom up. And what that gentleman just said then, it just made me feel so happy that people are thinking about it at least. And the fact that you've spoken with the government is amazing. Because, AI uses 10 times more the power, and the systems, electrical systems are 30 years old, 40 years old. What's going to happen there? So everyone seems to be talking a lot about the security, which is key. But it's only the second time today, thank goodness, that somebody else has mentioned the sustainability factor.
Well, at risk, I don't know what you said today, so at risk of repeating, this is actually an area that does really worry me, because people think because they can't see it, it's not consuming huge amounts of energy, and they kind of think, yeah, but I'm working from home now, aren't I? I'm not traveling into work anymore, so here we go. Am I repeating something you said earlier, or... No. Okay, but so, and this is, I would love, if there's one message that we need to get out there to people, is that be really, really conscious. Every time we're scrolling on our phones and we're just sitting there and that's using energy. That is feeding carbon into our system. So, it's really, really important this industry really gets on board. We cannot tackle the planetary issues unless this industry gets on board.
So we've probably got time for a couple more questions, and I want to make sure that anyone who hasn't asked a question yet gets an opportunity. Is anyone? Yeah, please.
Hi.
Hi.
In regards to your mindset, because you mentioned a lot of times, for example, when you were 18, 19 years old, you failed. And through the years, you failed. What has helped you strengthen the mindset and just believing in yourself that you could do it? Because you had a dream. You could have easily given it up years and years ago once you failed once. So what kept you believing in yourself and ultimately making it?
So, thank you. I like that question. I am a great believer in I'll say this a different way. I have met people in life who have made mistakes, and I can see them, because they carry them around in a great big sack on their back. And it weighs them down, and they're just not going to try stuff anymore because, I've made so many mistakes that I don't like making mistakes. I don't like that feeling of making a mistake. But what I do, I work it out. I go run it through my head. I think, right, what went wrong there? What do we do? It might be me. It might be a team. What happened there? Take my learnings from it. And that's what I need to carry around with me. And the rest of it's gone. If you ask me my biggest mistake in business, I wouldn't have a clue. I genuinely wouldn't have a clue. And that's not because I haven't made a load of them. It's purely and simply because I don't remember them. That's not important. Remember the good stuff. And if you fundamentally go back to, I am not stupid. In fact, I'm quite smart. And I'm very good at what I do. But I make mistakes. And that's fine. Because that means I'm trying. That means I'm pushing the boundaries a little bit. And if you can just switch that on and just focus on the important stuff, which is from that mistake, what do I take? What is it that goes into my toolbox and what do I dump? Because if you carry mistakes around with you, I promise you, eventually it won't just slow you down, it'll stop you.
So you had a question? Yeah.
I'm a little bit curious about seeing a need to start a business, while you see it as a need, and there comes the individual purpose into that. What value would you give to that? Well, isn't it something what gets you every morning out of bed?
Well, I think there's everybody in different phases in life. So when I first started in business, I needed to earn money. So the earning money bit was quite high, versus what I wanted to do. As it happens, I love business, so I ended up enjoying it. But depends on where you are in life. Sometimes you can simply say, I want to do what I want to do. And I want to do it because I care about it. I think it's really important. And actually, if it isn't the biggest money earner in the world, as long as it gives me a good life, then I'm perfectly happy with that. And that is a great place to be. Because I've seen a lot of very wealthy people who are really not very happy. Alternatively, you could think, well, actually, I'm at the beginning of my career. I've got a family I need to support. I need money. I need the cash. So I need a business that's going to be able to generate this much cash. Now, I'm not saying you should go against your values, because I think ultimately that will make you a very unhappy person. But as long as it fits within your value scale, you can perfectly be entitled to say, I just need to earn cash. So I think it's a sliding scale, and I can't answer it for you. It's where you are in life, what is important to you. But the one thing I will say, I'm sure I've done things, I know I've done things that I've done things badly, and I might have upset people, and that bothers me, and I will go back and I will try and do that right. But I have got to the end of my career thinking I hope, and I've tried very hard not to do damage. Now that's damage to people, damage to the environment, damage to my society. I would hate to think that I have damaged anything, because that is never constructive, and I think that's a very important thing to remember when you're going into business or you're building your life. Because even if I hadn't had the fortune of had the opportunity with West Star Holidays, bought it, made lots of money from it, when I got to the end, obviously not the end because I've got loads of years to go yet, but actually as you get later on in life, even if you haven't made an absolute fortune, you can be proud of what you do, and that's a great feeling.
So I'm afraid we don't have any more time for questions. I know, Deborah, you're on a really tight schedule. Thank you for being so candid, but just to end with, what's
the only thing I've got is candid. That's the only me I've got.
Just final thoughts. What's next for you? What's in the pipeline?
I don't know. So we're filming a new series of so there's one in the bag, so that comes out end of January. New one we start filming probably in April and May, and then I don't know. The best things in life. Everybody expects me to be a big planner. I am not a planner at all. If you're not careful in life, if you have too much of a plan, you plan opportunity out, because the coolest and best things that have ever happened to me have literally come out of the, totally come out of the blue. So I don't know. Who knows? Ask me back next year and I'll tell you what happened.
Marcus, she's coming back. Deborah, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it. Thank you.